We are live. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Killer Author Club. We are here with the one and only Wendy Walker tonight, talking about her upcoming thriller, What Remains. It's fabulous. We have tons to talk about, so grab your cocktail, your list of questions for Wendy, and sit tight. We will be right back.
Thought you really loved me, guess I was wrong. Thought you'd never leave me, guess I was dumb. Waited like forever to be your plus one, but I guess you were done. Left me at
Hi, guys. I am Killer Kimberly Bell, along with founding members Heather Gudenkoff and Kara Ruda, who is on vacation this week. We are so excited to welcome our friend Wendy Walker to the clubhouse.
Thank you for having me. I'm so
Yes,
glad to be
we're
here.
so excited. We have lots to talk about your book. We loved it. But the Killers and I started Killer Author Club. Now it's been, I think, about a year and a half ago, so that readers like you guys can interact with some of the best suspense and thriller authors in the business. Killers like El Cosimano of Finley Donovan fame, Shari LaPena, Frida McFadden, the amazing and hilarious Karen Slaughter, all killers coming up on future episodes of the Killer Author Club. And you can find those dates at killerauthorclub.com. But tonight we are here with Wendy to talk about killing of the fictional kind, of course. So make sure to drop your questions for her in the comments, and we will be scouring them to ask during the episode. If you're watching this on Facebook or have a Facebook account, make sure to check out our public group, Killer Author Club, and our private group for the really hardcore killers, Killer Author Clubhouse, where we host our book clubs. And we just chatted with the phenomenal Alex Finley about his book, What Have We Done? And have Rachel Kohler Croft, that's a tongue twister, coming up on June 13th to talk about Stone Cold Fox. And again, that happens exclusively in the clubhouse. You do have to join and answer a couple of questions. It's how we keep out the skeevy guys and the bots. And then, of course, we also have a YouTube channel where you can stream us live to your big flat screen on the wall. And you can find all of us, including Killer Wendy, wasting entirely too much time on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, all of the socials. For links to everything, watch the comments and make sure to check out our Killer Author Club website, killerauthorclub.com. So now, without further ado, Heather, would you please introduce our guest?
I would love to. Wendy Walker is the international best-selling author of psychological suspense. Her books have been published in over 23 languages and have been optioned for film and television. Her latest novels include Don't Look for Me, What Remains, and American Girl. Wendy is a magna cum laude graduate of Brown University and Georgetown Law School. Prior to writing, she worked as a lawyer, investment banker, and trained for competitor figure skating. She lives on the East Coast of the United States. So welcome, Wendy. We're so glad you're here with us.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
And can you give us a quick little overview of What Remains?
Yes. So this really is a story of cold case detective Elise Sutton. She is put in a situation where she makes a decision to take one life to save another. And she's hailed a hero, but that's not how she feels about what happened, because she can't remember the exact moment when she fired that fatal bullet, and if the man that she saved was still in the line of fire. Meanwhile, the man whose life she saved turns out to be a ghost. He disappears from the scene. He uses an alias when he finally makes contact with Elise, and he goes on to torment her for the rest of the book. So it's really a story. It's a fast-paced thriller, as Elise uses all of her skills and knowledge as both a detective and a professor of criminal forensics to keep herself and her family safe. And it is also a deep dive into trauma psychology and the emotional fallout that happens to Elise after taking a person's life in the line of duty. And so, yeah, it has both of those are the driving forces for the novel.
Well, we loved it, and we'll talk some more about the book. But for now, everyone settle in with your killer cocktail. And do you want to tell us about that a little bit, Kimberly?
Yes,
Yeah,
it's dark and stormy, right?
dark and stormy.
Okay,
So
the
why
dark,
did you choose that?
I made a, oh yeah, that's the right size.
Yeah.
So because the book is dark and stormy, this is a really, it's a dark story, and it's really emotional, and it just fit the mood of the book. So it's rum, ginger beer, and lime, and you can put it in any different proportions that you want, any size glass that you want. So I have mine in a small glass today, but you can have it in a large tumbler in the summertime. And yeah, so it really, I thought, fit the mood of the book.
Perfect. Perfect.
Well, cheers.
And congratulations on another amazing read.
Thank you so much.
Yes, you bet. You bet. So AJ Finn says of What Remains, he says, absolutely splendid storytelling, a book to entertain, to immerse, and to challenge. Jennifer Hillier says, an addictive, immersive, propulsive thriller. Not only is Walker at the top of her game, she is absolutely one of the genre's best. And Julie Clark, a twisted game of obsession and secrets. What Remains starts with a bang, literally, and doesn't let you go until the final exquisite resolution. So congratulations on all the accolades, all so well deserved. But now, Wendy, we need to know your answer to the killer question. Why do you kill? Fictionally, of course.
Yes. So yeah, I get asked this question a lot, and I'm drawn to crime novels and TV shows and movies. I think for the same reason many people are, which is fear. By experiencing these stories through fiction, we are able, I think, to process our fear of these things happening to us or people we love. And we are able to sort of put that fear, experience it, but in a way that is not, happening to us. And in that way, put it in sort of a nice, safe place and carry on with our lives, even though, danger is all around us. But we can't go through our lives feeling that way. We wouldn't, we would not find happiness, and I wouldn't get anything done if I was looking under my bed every night. So, but yeah, I think that's why. And I like to write about it myself and not just read it, because I have a fascination and with the darker aspects of humans, the human experience and psychology, psychological illnesses that involve, narcissism, personality disorders, sociopathy. So being able to explore those through characters is sort of an intellectual endeavor that I enjoy, in addition to my, my general curiosity about crime.
Yeah, getting into the character's head. I love that. That's the fun part. And
It
also,
is.
I think it's having a little bit of control over a situation, right? So you, as authors, at least, sorry for the readers out there, but as authors, we get to control the endings and the outcomes, and
Yes.
that for me is a nice.
That's true. I actually, people ask me if my books ever scare me, and I've always been able to say no, because I'm in complete control of what's happening.
Yeah.
But I just finished a book that's coming out next year that involves a serial killer who's targeting middle-aged women and making it look like suicide. So that's coming your way. And when I was writing a scene, I don't know, I started writing a scene from a room in my house because it was just easy. It didn't matter. It just had to be a room, right? And I wasn't scared at all. And then my house alarm went off in the middle of the
Oh
night
God.
for no reason, but I didn't know it was no reason. And I was alone. My kids were off at college. And so, like, alone in the house. And I all of a sudden the whole scenario of my book was in my head. It was the first time my own writing has terrified me. So
Wow, that's amazing.
the police came. It was
That's that's
yes, I
terrifying.
was gonna let the police go. It was
When fiction turns all too real, right?
yes, yes, yes.
Well,
Normally it doesn't scare me because I'm in control. So
Yeah.
yeah. Well, you
Yeah.
start this book off with a bang. So I'm going to read the first sentence. I'm
Yes.
in the towel aisle at Nichols Depot when I hear the shots, two pops followed by a chorus of screams. Wow, what a way to grab the reader. How
yeah.
did that first line just come to you, or did you have to write it, rewrite it, or did it come later?
I mean, the basic, the heart of it, I knew it was going to be, where she is and hearing the shots. And of course I, massaged the language. Is it pops? Is it shots? And, but that first scene was always in my mind when I started writing the book. And the book was actually inspired by, I was listening to a radio broadcast of bystanders and witnesses to a shooting in Colorado a couple of years ago. And it was in the moment because the reporters got there before some of the first responders. So the witnesses were sort of
Wow.
not corralled yet, and they didn't know what to do. So the reporters grabbed them, and they were, just trying to say what had happened. And the terror in their voices was so harrowing. And then they disappeared. Then the news turned to the victims, their families, the perpetrator, the police. And I wondered what happens to those people, what
Mm.
remains of them after experiencing something like this, because it is a trauma, and they're kind of expected to go home and maybe feel grateful that they, weren't impacted physically, but emotionally, I thought, what happens? So that was the impetus of the story. And so, of course, I had to start in that moment when
Mhm.
Elise's entire life changed in an instant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And you did it really well too, because, I mean, shootings, we see them all the time on the news, but when you're, it's such a terrifying thought to be in a place where one of those things, goes down. And you handled it really well. You did it exactly the right amount of, page space, because really that's what sets off the story, but it's not really what the story's about, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. And actually, I knew I wanted to be very careful. I did not want to in any way glamorize or even have anything that was not necessary to the story about what happened in the story.
Right.
It's very sparse. It's really just the first chapter and some flashbacks, because people know. I mean, I don't need to describe, the details of it for people to know. It is in our consciousness as, a culture now. And I actually tried rewriting it to take the shooting out because,
Mm.
you start send it to agents, and people are like, well, I don't know, is that going to be an issue? And so I tried writing a version where it was just a hold up at a convenience store, and it did not
Yeah.
land because there is something about that scenario that we are all so familiar with
Yeah.
that causes that trauma. And that's what needed to happen. Elise needed to have this trauma. And so did the man, by the way, whose life she
Yeah.
saves. He's deeply impacted by his response to being held at gunpoint. And that is what sets him off on his psychopathic, you know, journey of torturing Elise and needing to connect with her. He needs that connection. So both of them have been really impacted by the trauma. And so it needed to make sense. It needed to be what it was, where it started with the idea for the story.
Yeah.
So yes, I was extremely careful in crafting that.
Yeah, and you did it so well. And as Kimberly said, and the fact that she was there, she was buying pink towels, right, for her girls. It's like something that we all do. And
Yeah.
we right away can relate to Elise and her situation. So yeah, we get connected to her right away in that situation.
Yeah, and that was tricky to write too. And I'm sure both of you know, like when you're writing an action chapter and you need to make the reader connect to the character, and you don't, and it's your first chapter, And so I was trying to weave in like, okay, yeah, this thing is happening, but she's going to take a moment and think about her daughters because you all need to know about her daughters. So you like her and you know where she's coming from and you know that she was happy and content before this event happened. That first chapter was probably the hardest chapter to write because you know to have any page space that's devoted to something in backstory when there's all this action unfolding
Mhm.
is really tricky. So
Yeah. First chapters are always hard because you do have to work in, you know, you want to give just enough so that your readers like this character or want to know more, right? So they do need to know the personal details. They're always hard. They always take me a really long time to get right. So somebody says, Facebook user, I'm sorry, it's because you're not registered with StreamYard. So we don't see your name on here, but we see it in the actual Facebook groups. The book trailer is excellent. Can you tell us about the book trailer? Where can we find that? I haven't seen
so
it.
it's all over my social media. It's on my website now, wendywalkerbooks.com. So it's on if you go to there, and I think it's on the homepage now, or it's on the page for What Remains. But it's on my Instagram and my Facebook and my last Twitter feed, and Blackstone Publishing. It's on their feeds as well, and it's on my YouTube channel. So,
All right.
which is
I'll try to dig it up and see if I can post a link to it in the
that would be great. Yeah, it's really fun. So Blackstone, my publisher, did the trailer. I've done them myself before, so I of course had to weigh in, and the last scene is, you know, she's sort of walking in this field, and when you read the book, you'll see there's a second narration. It doesn't alternate. It's every few chapters, called The Kill Room, and it takes place in this room in a hunting shelter where normally animals that they've hunted are field dressed, and then cremated in the basement. There's a cremation oven, and you know, those chapters progress, and anyway, so it shows Elise sort of walking in the woods, and then just a final moment where she turns around, and you know, and so that scene I got to weigh in on. I said, could you make the black screen right after it just a little longer? And you know, but that was really the only comments that I had because it was so impactful, and I wanted it to just end and be, you know, like that big black screen for a second and then cuts to the book cover. So yeah,
I can't wait to go see it.
It's really fun. The
Yeah.
music. And you know what's so cool about it is they pulled quotes from the book, but that are read by the woman performing the audiobook. So how cool is that?
Yeah.
Have these, like, it sounds like she's just reading a script, but they actually pulled these sentences that she read from the book, and it's her voice. So if you wanted a preview of what the audiobook is like, you can watch the trailer. And she has such a unique voice. It captures Elise perfectly.
Love it. All right. Well, I can't wait to watch it.
Yes, yes. And you go into some really deep detail about how to get away with murder in this book.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yeah.
how scared are you that someone might look at your search history?
Yeah, I mean, actually, this time, well, yes, there was a lot of searching about cremation, and you know, figuring out just, you know, making sure that the size of the oven, and I mean, I won't go into all the sort of less, like, the sort of creepier things about it, but I had some obstacles in making that work because of what happens to the body in the oven. But yeah, and the good news was that I didn't have to Google everything because I had a wonderful source. I had a real life cold case detective who lives in a neighboring town, and she's consulted on my other books for anything, you know, police procedural, things like that. But this time, this was like a long conversation, and she gave me so much to work with, and actually so many of Elise's stories and the emotions that she feels are derived from that conversation, and you know, from what it is like to actually be a cold case detective. So it was really wonderful to be able to incorporate all of that. Yeah.
That's a good friend to have.
Yeah.
As a thriller author, right?
Yeah, no, she's amazing. And what's so funny, I'm sure you've experienced this, but when I when I send her questions through email, her response always starts with LOL because the questions are so ridiculous. Like, okay, I need to human remains in a cremation oven in the woods and a hunting shelter, and there can't be any DNA, and there can't be any, and then I get LOL, like as if, so yeah, it's really, it's always very funny. And medical consultants are really fun too, because I had one doctor who really got into it, and he started like coming up with plots, like while we were talking. He's like, well, what if you use this to do that? And I was like, okay, slow down. But it's great. I love talking to people and not Googling, but yeah, the history can be kind of scary.
No joke.
Yeah. And is there really, in the book you mentioned a college course called, I think, Leave No Trace? Is that really a college course somewhere?
I don't know. Maybe it is.
Maybe.
I completely made that up.
That was awesome.
Like Keller, yeah. So so the book took a lot of different, had a lot of different iterations. And the conversation when this man, his name is Wade, whose life she saves, or that's the name he tells her originally, and she continues to call him that throughout the book. When they first have a conversation, she needed to, give him a lot of things, tell him a lot of things about her life so that he could use that to then stalk her. So I had to set up a scenario where she at first trusted him and was so desperate to talk to him, and they have this long conversation. And so in the first draft, I thought, well, if she's teaching this class about how to get away with murder, that would be perfect, because then he could look that class up and use everything she knows against her when he's stalking her. So in a sense, she'll be playing this sort of dangerous cat and mouse game with herself. And how cool would that be? So so the class had to be that. I don't know if it actually exists, but maybe it should. I don't know. Maybe not.
I thought it was fascinating and terrifying, because he basically used all her knowledge that she taught him against her.
Yeah. And then it was fun because I could plant little clues in the kill room chapters. It opened up this whole, this whole world of fun for me as a writer.
So the kill room chapters, like, how did you do that technically? Do you plot everything out, or did you write those later and thread them through, or did you know going in that you wanted those chapters in there?
Yeah. So I had a tough time figuring out how to tell that part of the story. I knew I wanted another part of the story, not just a linear story of Elise in first person, present tense in her head. I wanted it to break it up a little and have a little more intrigue. And I had this twist idea for the end. And it was a lot of work. I plot everything. And actually, this is the first book I tried not to plot. I wrote the first 50 pages. It was such a fail. The whole 50 pages were her in the department store wandering around having emotional reactions because I was so engrossed in it. And then I thought, well, nothing's happening. Nothing's happening after the first. It's just my interest in her psychological, reaction to this trauma. Anyway, so the first draft of this, the kill room chapters, my agent read it, and she loved the book, but she didn't catch the ending. And another person didn't catch the twist at the end because it was too subtle. So then I had to go back and be more heavy-handed with the clues. And then my editor picked up on it too soon. So then I had to find middle ground. And that's right. You both know that. That's always the challenge, is to drop enough breadcrumbs so that enough of the audience is not going to get it, but not feel deceived. And some people will always get it, and some people will feel deceived. But you want the majority to fall in the middle, right? So yeah, that was challenging with this book. But I plot everything out. Yeah.
And you do it very well. You do it very well.
Thank you.
You really dig into stalking. I mean, that is a big part of the book. We've got the tall man who's terrifying and won't leave Elise alone. But she kind of employs her own stalking strategies throughout the book
She
too. So
where
is that line drawn between when it's justified and when it's
scary? So it's I've had a lot of comments about her marriage, and it's in the first chapter, so I can disclose it. Her husband had an affair 4 years ago, and she has glued their marriage back together, and so has he. And so we find them in an already compromised relationship that is then put under strain. And for those of you wondering why I did this, because some people don't like the husband and they get angry that she stayed with him. It's central to the plot, but also I wanted to create a character who is nuanced, right? Who people do that. They forgive each other. They stay in relationships. They make things work. They find forgiveness. And one of the reasons is that, yeah, when she was finding out about his affair, she employed her tools as an investigator. And I thought that was an interest. That passage I didn't plan on writing, but I was in the moment in her head, and she's having a conversation with him, and they're rehashing this affair. And because of course the tall man Wade stirs it up to cause problems for her. And it just came out, and so I found it interesting to explore that. And yeah, I mean, a lot of the decisions that she makes are, in that fight or flight head that she's in the whole book. So a lot of people ask, why did she do this? Why did she go it alone? Why did she choose to, take these tactics and engage with this man and use her skills against him instead of, just sort of going and hiding until someone found him? And, it's really, this is a study in trauma. This is what people, when people are in fight or flight mode from trauma and they don't come down from it. So she had the trauma in the department store, and then her life is threatened. Her children's lives are threatened. Her partner's life is threatened. Her whole world is threatened. And she has not processed that original trauma. And so all of the decisions that she's making are in that headspace. And that's really what the book is about. What remains of her after not just the department store, but all of these decisions and actions that she takes to save her family, which are kind of extreme. And so that was what was so fun about writing it.
Yeah. And those readers are going to love it. So it comes out on June 13th. Correct. So yeah.
Yes,
so
June 13th. You can pre-order now. Yeah.
2 weeks for today. So, and you guys can get your hands on one of 2 early copies of What Remains. We have 2 up for grabs. All you have to do is answer this question about our killer guest, and we will pick tomorrow night around this time from the correct answers in all the different Facebook groups and on YouTube. Bonus points for joining the club and subscribing to our YouTube channel. So the question is, what sport did Wendy train for competitively? If you don't know, go back and watch the intro because we do mention it in her bio. But drop your answer in the comment thread. And like I said, we'll come back in about 24 hours and choose the winners.
Yeah, and the Killer Author Club, we love independent booksellers, and we support your support. We appreciate your support of them. And Wendy chose one of her favorites, Elm Street Books in New Canaan, Connecticut. Can you tell us why this bookseller is special to you?
Well, they're in my hometown, in my community, and they have been supporting me for, oh my gosh, over a decade. And my launch event is going to be there. So if anyone's in Connecticut, in New Canaan, it's actually at the New Canaan Library, but Elm Street Books is supplying the books and hosting the event. And, I think it's amazing. Not all local bookstores support their local authors. I mean, there's a lot of turnover in management. And this store has just been, really, they've been just so wonderful to me. There are others too. I wish I could name more, but I had to choose just one, and they are in my hometown. So, yeah.
And we'll be dropping the link to in the comments, so you can order Wendy's latest book and any others to your wish list from there. So,
love it.
Wonderful.
And we also have a couple of Killer Author Club alumni with new books coming out. Hannah Mary McKinnon with The Revenge List. It came out on the 23rd. And she is giving away 1 physical and 1 audio book, and that is US or Canada only. And then we also have Catherine McKenzie. Have you seen her? and she is giving away 2 books. That one comes out on June 27th. So you can get your hands on an early copy of Have You Seen Her? As well. To enter, just drop a comment into the chat and we will choose the winners at random tomorrow night. Congrats to Hannah and Catherine. And if you aren't one of the lucky winners, we will drop a link where you can also buy their books.
Yes, yes. And of course, membership has its privileges. In the Killer Author Clubhouse, if you become a member, every episode we choose from the Killer Author Clubhouse hat one lucky winner who gets some fun swag, t-shirts, mugs, candles, totes, hats, all of which can be found at killerauthorclub.com. And tonight's winner is Laura Davis. So Laura, please send one of the killers your address and we'll send some killer swag your way. It could be a water bottle. It could be the little wine glass.
A t-shirt, you got the t-shirt on.
A t-shirt, candle, all kinds of fun stuff. So if you aren't a member of the clubhouse, join, because you never know, your name might just show up there.
So Wendy, we have really good news. You survived the Killer Author Club. You made it. So we will be sending this to you. You can print it out, stick it on your forehead, put it on your wall. But thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
Yes, and that does it for tonight's episode. Thanks to everyone, and thanks to Wendy for being here. We are back in 2 weeks on June 13th with another doubleheader. First, beginning at 8 Eastern, we have Book Club with Rachel Collar-Croft, discussing Stone Cold Fox, the book that Good Morning America called Delicious, Twisty Tale of Deception and Daughterhood, and People magazine called A Hoot. And then remember, Killer Author Book Club is exclusive to the Killer Author Clubhouse, and there will be spoilers and giveaways. In fact, Rachel is giving away a copy of Stone Cold Fox, so come join the club. We'll add that link to the comments. And then right after Book Club at 9 Eastern, we'll be back right here with the one and only Elle Cosimano, who will chat with us about her Finley Donovan series. So for times, full schedule, past episodes, recipes, and merch, surf to thekillerauthorclub.com, and we'll see you right back here in 2 weeks. And in the meantime, go get yourself a fun new t-shirt. Thanks, everybody.
I guess I'm a killer. Threw our love into the river. Heard you saying